Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. In the first 4 weeks of the NFL season, there have been a lot of surprises. But one of the biggest surprises, I think, is that of the 26 teams, only 2 have allowed less than 10 points per game. And those 2 teams were statistically the worst 2 defensive teams in the NFL last year. How do you account for that, Tom?
Oh, boy, I don't know if I can. The Eagles, of course, were really bad on defense, and the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think maybe it's because the coaching staffs are so good that when they concentrate on one area, they can really do the job. The Eagles got Berge, and he tied all the young guys together, and they're tough on defense.
That's not the case with the Cardinals, though. When they drafted for offense.
Well, I think Ray Wilsey came back into pro ball and tied together some good people that were just sort of running around doing strange things. But the Cardinals have good team speed on defense as well as offense. But I think the concentration's the thing, Pat. Last year's NFC Championship game was a spirited battle between the Minnesota Vikings and the Dallas Cowboys. Last week, the same 2 teams reconvened in Irving, Texas, and once again, the game was played as if the conference title was at stake.
It was to be a game which at times looked very similar to last year's NFC Championship. The Cowboys' only touchdown in last year's game with the Vikings came on a long punt return by Golden Richards. The Cowboys' first touchdown last week came on a long pass reception by Golden Richards. When Roger Staubach tried to build on his early lead, he was short-circuited by linebacker Amos Martin, number 55. Just 3 plays after Martin's interception, Fran Tarkenton and Chuck Foreman turned things around for Minnesota. On the Cowboys' next series, Staubach was again intercepted, this time by Nate Wright, and the Vikings led 13-7 at the half. In the third period, Fran Tarkenton went to his lesser-known receivers, rookie John Holland and second-year man Jim Lash, number 82. For the big plays, Tarkenton again went to his extraordinarily gifted second-year backfield mate, Chuck Foreman, number 44. Minnesota led 20-7, but the Cowboys were not about to allow any more foolishness, as John Holland found out on the Vikings' next series. Trailing 20-7 in the fourth quarter, and despite 4 earlier interceptions, Roger Staubach kept scrambling and throwing until he got some positive results. Calvin Hill got the Cowboys close, and then Staubach hit Walt Garrison for the touchdown, which brought Dallas within 6 at 20-14. An 11-yard Viking punt again had Staubach at midfield. And this time, the key play was a third down pass to league-leading receiver Drew Pearson, number 88. On third down from the Minnesota 8, Calvin Hill went the rest of the way, and Dallas led by a point, 21-20. With 1 minute to go and faced with 3rd and 12, Tarkenton and Foreman again performed Minnesota magic. Chuck Foreman accounted for more than 200 yards of total offense, but none more important than this fumble recovery. Fran Tarkenton then hit John Gilliam for what appeared to be the winning touchdown, but Gilliam could only get 1 foot down in the end zone. With just 4 seconds left, Fred Cox kicked from 27 yards. The official behind the goalpost ruled that the ball passed over the upright and was therefore good. By the width of a football, Minnesota had won 4 straight, and Dallas had lost 3 straight for the first time in 10 years.
After several losing seasons under the generalship of Bobby Douglas, the Chicago Bears decided to enter the space age, Pat.
Unlike Douglas, quarterback Gary Huff uses the run to set up the pass, and with him, the Bears have put some teeth in their offense, and they are growling again in the NFC Central.
Against New Orleans, some old problems plague Gary Huff and the Chicago Bears. Faulty ball handling and a leaky pass pocket are age-old Bear woes. But this year, there are some new playmates for Huff, and the brightest is a rookie running back named Ken Granberry. Granberry's receiving and running has been the surprise of this young season, and his 11-yard run gave Chicago an early 7-0 lead in the first quarter. While Huff and Granberry have added a new dimension to the Chicago attack, defense and age-old Bear strength is in the good hands of Wally Chambers, number 60. When the Saints couldn't run, they tried the home run, and the results were just as unrewarding. So Archie Manning retrenched to a short, unspectacular passing attack, which brought results and finally a touchdown by Alvin Maxson. This tied the game at 7-7. Huff's receivers are fast and small and just the right size to tee off on up the middle. But this year, Chicago has some depth, and when Charlie Wade was strung out on a St. Clothesline, his replacement, Bo Rather, tested the treacherous middle and was rewarded with a deciding touchdown. All in all, it was another smashing day for the revitalized Chicago Bears, who evened their record at 2-2 by beating New Orleans 24-10.
You know, it's easy to knock a team when they're down, and so the Houston Oilers have absorbed a melange of barbs and slanders over the past few seasons. But this year, though their record is only 1-3, they've been hanging tough in every ball game. Just ask the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers found themselves in Houston with their backs to the dome. The Oilers were ready to steal victory, as this interception by number 42 Tommy Maxwell attests. Historically, the Oilers are supposed to be a breather on everyone's schedule, but this year they've been a tough bunch of headhunters who leave people breathless. Last week, the Houston defense blunted the Pittsburgh attack and pounced on Steeler miscues, like this Steve Davis fumble recovered and returned by number 63 Ronnie Carroll. It seemed evident that Ronnie was pleased by his superb effort. The Oilers jumped to a 7-0 lead on a 47-yard end around by William White Shoes Johnson. But alas, it was all the scoring Houston would muster, despite the fact that Johnson tried to appease the touchdown gods with a quaint tribal dance, indigenous to teams of the far Southwest. In the second half, number 26 Preston Pearson entered the game for the Steelers and stole the show. He rushed for 117 yards in 2 periods, as well as presenting a deep threat as a receiver. In the last quarter, with the Steelers trailing 7-6, Pearson skirted right in to put Pittsburgh ahead for the first time, 13-7. The Oilers mounted one final scare when Maxwell again intercepted. However, the theft accounted for naught, but to make Pittsburgh grateful that their breather in Houston was finally over.
Since George Allen became the head coach, the offensive game plan of the Redskins seems to be based on the play of the defense, Tom.
Well, Pat, you're right. Washington seems to bide its time waiting until the defense forces a turnover, and then they go all out for a score. If they get a touchdown, they retreat into a cocoon until the defense asserts itself again. It's not an offense designed to play catch-up football.
It was a day for strutting in Riverfront Stadium, and the Cincinnati Bengals showed their heels to the Redskins early. With less than 6 minutes played, Lamar Parrish fielded a punt on his 10 and turned on the Jets. When Lyle Blackwood, number 29, cut down Washington's last hope, Parrish eased to a 90-yard touchdown. On defense, the Bengals pulled out all stops with a safety blitz by Tommy Casanova. On offense, quarterback Ken Anderson supplied the Bengals' sole running punch, as his odysseys through the Redskins accounted for 70 yards rushing. Isaac Curtis was double covered on every play but one. But that single occasion proved costly to Washington when Anderson sent a screamer to Curtis at the post. Quarterback Billy Kilmer deserved a better fate as twice Redskin receivers dropped certain touchdowns. The Bengals blew open the game when Larry Smith fumbled and Lamar Parrish zigged, then zagged back across the grain for his second touchdown. The Bengals built a 28-3 lead, and by the fourth quarter, the bruised and bewildered Redskins looked to the man who has provided so much inspiration in past seasons. For most of 1974, Sonny Jurgensen's services were only required on conversions. But with 15 minutes remaining, his play mix was superb, and the Burgundy flowed on the generalship of the game's richest extra point holder. Still trusty was the familiar old buggy whip right arm, whistling one to Charlie Taylor on a deep out. A draw, a sideline pass, a flare. It was as simple as 1, 2, 3, touchdown to Moses Denson. Only the clock denied Sonny on this day as his second touchdown, a wind whistler to Jerry Smith, made the score respectable at 28-17. But even a tour de force by the game's past master could not sour the sweet taste of victory for the Cincinnati Bengals, who remained atop the AFC Central Division.
It's been a tough year for several coaches. Last week, when the Atlanta Falcons traveled to New Haven, Coach Norm Van Brocklin was still looking for his first victory of the season, while a week before, his opponent Bill Arnsbarger had just recorded his first victory as head coach of the New York Giants.
New York quarterback Norm Snead might have foreseen that trouble was on the way when he saw what happened to a simple outlet pass on the game's third play from scrimmage. The Falcons had the ball in New York territory but couldn't score. The next time the Giants had the ball, Snead gave it to Doug Kotar, and Kotar took care of the rest. Doug Kotar is the no longer unheralded free agent rookie from Kentucky by way of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last week, he carried 15 times for 119 yards. And our long lens camera from behind the end zone shows what Doug Kotar looks like to the opposition's defensive secondary. After Doug Kotar's explosion, Claude Humphrey and his Falcon teammates held Norm Snead and the Giants fairly well in check. And then Bob Lee finally started to find some semblance of an offense for Atlanta. Like last year, Lee found Ken Burrow and tight end Jim Mitchell for key games. And when Lee found Mitchell open in the end zone, the game was suddenly all even. Late in the third period, Norm Snead hit rookie receiver Ray Rhodes on the sidelines for a first down. But when he tried the same thing to Rhodes on the opposite sideline, Atlanta strong safety Ray Brown was waiting. Explained Brown, he threw it, I caught it. Whatever the explanation, it meant defeat number 3 for Arnsbarger's Giants and victory number 1 for Van Brocklin's Falcons, 14-7.
Despite their one loss to the undefeated New England Patriots, the Rams are still larger than life, aren't they, Pat?
Larger than life must be exactly the way the winless Detroit Lions felt about the Los Angeles Rams when the Lions traveled to the land of the superheroes to play the team that many believe will be the super team of 1974.
In Los Angeles, the martial arts are almost as popular as the Dodgers and the Rams, but even where superheroes are concerned, the going can get surprisingly tough. And this sun-soaked Southern California afternoon started out looking like one of those days for the Rams, when Dave Chappell's punt was blocked by Levi Johnson and recovered by Ken Sanders of the Detroit Lions. Led by their own Sunshine Superman, number 74, Merlin Olsen, the Rams defense turned away this early threat by the Lions with no points on the board. Late in the first quarter, Lawrence McCutcheon, number 30, burst up the middle for 15 of his 124 yards he would gain on the afternoon. 12 plays later, John Hadel completed the 80-yard drive with this 4-yard scoring pass to tight end Bob Klein, and Los Angeles took a 7-0 lead. But Detroit's improved defense struck right back on the Rams' next series. John Hadel's pass was short-circuited by number 72 Ernie Price, a second-year defensive end from Texas A&I. But the play was nullified by a roughing the passer penalty, and Los Angeles maintained possession. John Hadel picked out Lance Rensel with this aerial, marking Hadel's 2,000th completion as a pro, and setting up a short field goal by David Ray, giving Los Angeles a 10-0 lead at half. Late in the third quarter, Tony Baker rammed over from 2 yards out, and a missed extra point left the Rams' advantage at 16-0. But on a day that was proving to be surprisingly tough for superheroes in general, the Detroit defense would allow the Rams' well-stacked attack no more scoring opportunities. And it was the Lions who began taking the play to the Rams as Bill Munson exceeded 10,000 yards in passing offense for a career just before he hit Ron Jesse with his 34-yard spectacular, narrowing the score to 16-7 at the top of the fourth period. Too late in the last quarter, with just 24 seconds remaining, Munson found Charlie Sanders open in the end zone. And Errol Mann's missed extra point try made the final score 16-13 at the end of a difficult victory for Los Angeles, reminding the superheroes everywhere that success need not always be unblemished. The Kansas City Chiefs have in the past been known for their rock-solid defense and a wide-open offense, two keys in their winning tradition, Pat.
That's true, Tom, but while the Kansas City defense still appears to be just as tough as ever, their offense just may be taking them from the paths of glory right to the path of tears.
The Denver Broncos do not possess a lengthy winning background from which to summon pride, leaving head coach John Ralston with the task of instilling a winner's consistency in the Bronco attack force. However, big gains like this one by number 44 Floyd Little were few and far between as the Chiefs stormtroopers powered in on the sputtering Denver offense. At one point, the Broncos took 3 shots from the Kansas City 3-yard line, only to be snagged amid the tall timber of the redwood forest. But the Denver runners were not all that tumbled, as the Chiefs secondary and linebackers held the visitors to under 100 yards passing, twice intercepting. Number 78, Bobby Bell, scored untouched and barely avoided a clothesline tackle from a teammate as the Kansas City defense covered for their slightly off-target offense. The Chiefs' offense managed to score only once, and that came on a short burst by Willie Ellison, number 24. Trailing 14-3, Denver finally managed some offense as number 10, Steve Ramsey, replaced an ineffective Charlie Johnson at quarterback. John Keyworth scored to bring the Broncos to within 4 points, leaving it up to Mike Livingston, number 10, to control the clock for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Livingston misread the coverage, and number 26, Calvin Jones, gratefully accepted the gift, returning the ball to the Kansas City 11. Denver would now need only 2 plays to claim the victory. John Keyworth barreled in for his second touchdown as the Denver Broncos were finally able to claim a 17-14 victory over the thoroughly disgusted Kansas City Chiefs.
When the Oakland Raiders traveled to Cleveland last week, Jim Otto, old Double O, and George Blanda, the famed 47-year-old kicker, both stretched their consecutive game streaks to 200. And that milestone also marked the 200th game for all of the original teams of the American Football League, Tom.
It's incredible, but you know, Otto's streak is especially remarkable because he started every regular season game the Raiders have ever played.
Preparing for his 200th consecutive start, Double O Jim Otto warmed up to face the Cleveland Browns for only the 4th time. And this start was a shaky one as Kenny Stabler's first pass of the afternoon was picked off by Charlie Hall and returned for a touchdown, giving Cleveland a sudden 7-0 advantage. A field goal made it 10-0 before Oakland came back when Ken Stabler concluded an 11-play, 71-yard drive with this 11-yard scoring strike to Fred Biletnikoff. After the following kickoff, the Cleveland Browns got moving again as Mike Phipps drilled tight end Milton Moore in with this 24-yarder. And 2 plays later, with the ball at the Oakland 34, Phipps found Greg Pruitt behind Gerald Irons, and Cleveland had a surprising 17-7 first quarter lead. At the top of the second quarter, Stabler found Clarence Davis behind linebacker Charlie Hall on almost an identical replay of the earlier Phipps to Pruitt connection. The silver and black narrowed the Browns' margin to 17-14. Almost as if the name of the game were, "Can you top this?" the Browns were up and at 'em again as Phipps lined one to Gloucester Richardson, who looked on this play like a very famous number 42 from the Browns' glory years. But Richardson's catch led to nothing as both defenses stiffened. Midway through the quarter, Stabler fired long for Fred Biletnikoff. And though the play appeared to backfire when Tom Darden intercepted at the Browns' 2-yard line, the silver and black defense took advantage of Cleveland's precarious field position. Watch Otis Sistrunk over center as he barrels unblocked into the Browns' backfield to drop Ken Brown for a safety. Sistrunk's play added 2 points to Oakland's total, making the score 17-16, and it returned the football to the Raider offense. Following Cleveland's required kick from their 20-yard line, Kenny Stabler then engineered a slick 65-yard drive, which was capitalized on the 10th play when Pete Banaszak, number 40, charged across from the 3-yard line. And at the end of a wild and woolly half, the Raiders climbed into the lead for the first time at 23-17. Beginning the second half, the Raiders got moving just as quickly as Clarence Davis bolted over right tackle for a 41-yard gain. And Kenny Stabler increased the Raider advantage to 30-17 when he hit Cliff Branch in the end zone on a play which nearly ignited hostilities in this bitterly fought battle. A few plays later, Willie Brown's interception in return set up a 1-yard touchdown plunge by Clarence Davis. And the game was beyond Cleveland's reach when Hugh McInnes, number 37, set sail on this 44-yard touchdown run at the top of the fourth quarter. In the end, although they did enough things right to beat many teams, the Browns were overmatched by the richly talented Pride and Poise boys from Oakland. And the Raiders overwhelmed the Browns 40-24. Happy days, 00.
Last Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles were on the West Coast to tangle with the San Diego Chargers. For the Eagles, it has been a year of uncertain offense and tremendous defense, while for the Chargers, it has been a year of surprises.
A genuine San Diego surprise has been the running of number 33, Don Woods. The rookie free agent sifted through the Eagle defense for 133 yards, registering his second straight 100-yard-plus performance. But despite the brilliant sprints of Don Woods, The Chargers could only score once as number 14, Dan Fouts, barely avoided disaster for the touchdown. Number 27, Gary Garrison, captured the deflected pass for San Diego's lone score against the rugged Eagle defense, while the Chargers defense brought hard times upon the faltering Philadelphia offense. Number 57, Floyd Rice, collected an alert theft, but the Charger offense could not cash it in, primarily due to an opportunistic Eagle defense. This interception by number 66, Bill Berge, was nullified by a penalty, but 4 other steals counted as Eagle Green burrowed deep into Charger blue, forcing game-breaking mistakes. Number 61, Bill Dunston, collected the fumble and set sail the final 46 yards for 1 Eagle touchdown, while the offense managed to add another to finish with a 13-7 victory. In posting 3 victories, Philadelphia has featured an aggressive defense that scores points. But to continue winning, the offense must catch up with its defense. And should this ever happen, look out, NFC East.
Well, Pat, I've started finally to take the St. Louis Cardinals seriously, and last Sunday they left San Francisco with a 34-9 victory. They've only had 29 points scored against them so far this season, and that's the lowest total in the NFL.
I've been impressed also with their offensive explosiveness, Tom. Of the last 10 touchdowns they've scored, 7 have come from outside the 50-yard line.
At the start of last Sunday's game, the San Francisco 49ers seemed confident they could and would prove the St. Louis Cardinals more fluke than truth. And sure enough, in the first quarter, Cardinal hopes of victory were being extinguished by angry red waves of 49ers. All it took was a flip of number 19, Joe Reed's wrist, and Gene Washington had the 49ers 6 points up on the visitors. The Cardinals on the next series, however, recouped and were looking at a 3-pointer by number 25, Jim Bakken. But number 57, Frank Nunley, turned the whole thing around when he blocked the kick, and suddenly the 49ers were in goal position from the St. Louis 44-yard line. From there, number 40, Wilbur Jackson, workhorsed the San Franciscans to the St. Louis 7-yard line, and a 9-0 lead over the unimpressive St. Louis Cardinals. The final Cardinal indignity was suffered as number 17, Jim Hart, started a come-from-behind program that was quickly preempted by number 37, cornerback Jimmy Johnson. But Johnson's interception was a blessing in disguise, because when the offense caught up with him, the sidelines looked remarkably like a scene right out of Gunsmoke. And on the next series, the Cardinals' defense took the offense's example and came on like a wrecking crew. From then on, the Cardinals were in control, and 4 times 49ers signal callers felt the sting of the league's leading defense. Just before the half ended, number 21, Terry Metcalf, started spurting out of the Cardinal backfield for impressive yardage. From the 24-yard line, Metcalf followed some playbook blocking for a score and spike that no referee could possibly find fault with. Still behind 9-7, Jim Hart came out at the start of the third quarter with both barrels smoking. First, he hit number 85, Mel Gray, who always seems able to make the short one count. His 57-yard catch and carry put the Cardinals in the lead 14-9. With the defense holding strong, the 49ers were forced to punt, and Terry Metcalf was once again center stage. Metcalf's 43-yard punt return put the Cardinals in easy scoring range. And it was number 44, Donnie Anderson, that took Hart's pass for the score and a wrench knee. Jim Hart finished up the 24-point third period with his 59-yard bomb to Mel Gray as the Cardinals buried the 49ers 34-9 to stand all alone on the NFC Eastern Summit, and actually looking forward to playing Dallas this Sunday.
A game between the Bills and the Packers would ordinarily be thought of as a clash between the gliding grace of O.J. Simpson and the gouging gallops of John Brockington and MacArthur Lane. Well, last week, as the game came to pass, the run was only a pop-gun pistol for both sides.
In Green Bay last week, the famous Packer colors were on display. Making foul weather gear necessary were ominous thunderclouds and the even more ominous Buffalo Bills. The high-pressure front had the Packers making early mistakes. One fumble was recovered by Buffalo's number 42, Neil Craig, who ran it in close to set it up for the Juice. But last week, the Juice got squeezed repeatedly and managed only 62 yards on 16 carries. Fortunately for them, the Bills are no longer a one-pronged attack, and quarterback Joe Ferguson found another route to the end zone on a 9-yard pass to number 27, Ahmad Rashad. Ferguson continued to cleave the cloudy skies for good yardage, hitting wide receiver J.D. Hill on this play. In close, Ferguson faked play action to Simpson, then went down the middle to tight end Paul Seymour, number 87. Three times, fullback Jim Braxton powered in from the 1-yard line as the Bills steadily increased their lead. Only once did their passing game cause Buffalo grief when on this play, number 28, Willie Buchanan, intercepted and ran the steal back to set up a Green Bay threat. Quarterback Jerry Taggy went first to the air and hit number 81, Rich McGeorge. Then John Brockington sliced through on his only big gainer in a 56-yard afternoon. Finally, number 36, MacArthur Lane, who had a mere 44 yards for the day, slipped into the end zone to register the only Packer points in a 27-7 Buffalo victory. For Buffalo coach Lou Saban, it looks like another year of contention for his club. But for Green Bay coach Dan Devine, it looks like another year of contention of another sort with the town of Green Bay.
You know, Tom, there are only 5 ways to make a coaching debut in the NFL. You can win big, you can tie, you can lose, or you can lose big.
I think that says it all, Pat. And last week, Joe Thomas, the new head coach of the Baltimore Colts, covered 2 of those points when he lost, and he lost big.
In New England, this man is revered almost as much as old Paul himself, for he has fashioned a 4-game win streak for the Patriots, which is their longest since the Big Tea Party. On the other hand, new head coach Joe Thomas of Baltimore heard nothing but criticism last week, mingled with cries from his offense that the red shirts were coming. One of the few successful Baltimore forays of the afternoon was a kickoff return by number 40, Bruce Laird. And eventually the Colts did manage 3 points. But for most of the afternoon, their offense made very few advances toward the New England goal line. Meanwhile, quarterback Jim Plunkett quickly had bombs bursting in air with 6-point explosions. On the Patriots' third play, wide receiver Reggie Rucker streaked under this 69-yarder in what was just the beginning. On their second possession, a well-executed reverse netted Darrell Stingley 23 yards and another 6 points. By this time, the Colts must have thought they were involved in the Boston Marathon, but only the Patriots were running as number 42, Mac Heron, darted in from 5 yards, the third time New England was on offense. Having tried everything but giving the ball away, Baltimore next turned to that ploy, and number 34, Prentice McCray, accepted the gift from tight end Ray Chester. Then Plunkett coolly unloaded to Sam the Bam Cunningham in the end zone, leaving only one question. How bad was it going to get? The answer for the Colts was not encouraging as Mac Heron on his Magic Mini scooter took a punt and zipped 66 yards up the sideline to give New England the hammer and nail. Then Jim Plunkett to Reggie Rucker put the lid on with this 16-yard score. Finally, number 36, John Tarver, came steaming 7 yards up the middle. His score nailed down the victory with the biggest spike of all. For New England, 4 in a row, 42-3.
I've got a slight lead. I've got you 8-6 to 7-7.
I just can't lose my poise. There's some tough ones this week. New England against the Jets.
I'm going to go with the New York Jets.
You are?
Yep.
I'll take New England. Dallas at St. Louis.
I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I like them too. We'll both pick that upset. Miami at Washington.
Miami.
Okay, I like that. Pittsburgh, Kansas City.
Well, there's two good defensive teams locked up. I'll go with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I agree. The Giants, Philadelphia.
Well, that's one that you and I are personally involved in. I think the Eagles will beat the Giants.
I got to go with the Giants. We'll be back next week to show you what happens. I'm Pat Summerall.
I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.